Every morning, before the sun fully rose, Daniel would already be standing in front of the church where he worked as a janitor. With a broom in his hand and a calm heart, he would clean the floors, pews, and courtyard of the church with dedication. He was a devout Christian. Although his life was simple, his faith was unwavering. He felt that God was always with him in the silence, in the tiredness, in his quiet prayers. One day, after finishing his work early, Daniel walked home through a path he usually didn't take. By chance, he saw an old man sweeping the small mosque's courtyard by the roadside. The old man's hands trembled due to age, but his movements remained steady. Daniel stopped for a moment, observing. In the following days, his curiosity led Daniel to often choose the same path. The old man was always there, either sweeping or quietly cleaning the wudu area. One evening, Daniel gathered the courage to approach and offer his help. "May I help, sir?" he asked. The old man smiled, his face full of peace. "Of course, son. A young hand like yours will surely get the job done quicker." Since that day, Daniel often helped clean the mosque after work. He didn't ask many questions, only worked in silence, but in his heart, there was a sense of peace that was hard to explain. The old imam, who also lived next to the mosque, never tried to convert Daniel to Islam. He only spoke of cleanliness, sincerity, and how every small act could be an act of worship. Gradually, Daniel's curiosity grew. He began to ask about wudu, about prayer, and why the imam always seemed so peaceful despite his simple life. The imam answered gently, without pressure, without judgment. "Don't you get tired of always cleaning the mosque by yourself?" Daniel asked one afternoon while sweeping the mosque's dusty yard, blown by the wind. The old imam smiled. "Fatigue is normal. But in worship, fatigue actually brings blessings. Every dust we clean might just be wiping away our sins." Those words echoed in Daniel's mind. He wasn't someone who was easily impressed, but the sincerity of the old man touched him. He began to notice the imam's movements when he performed ablution, how calm he was, as if each drop of water cleaned more than just his skin. He noticed the way the imam lowered his head during prayer, as if speaking directly to God. Daniel went home and sought to learn more. He read the translation of the Qur'an that the imam had lent him, starting from Surah Al-Fatiha to Al-Baqarah. He was amazed by the tone of justice, mercy, and firmness in those verses. But in his heart, there was still confusion. Did seeking peace mean leaving behind the faith he had followed since childhood? Daniel's days became filled with questions. He began comparing the teachings he had always believed in with the ones he had just learned. He read the Bible again, more honestly than before. He started to feel that Islam wasn't contradictory, but in fact, clarified many things that had previously seemed unclear to him. One night, after cleaning the inside of the mosque, Daniel sat in a corner of the room. The old imam was whispering quietly in Daikr. Silence. The dim light. The Isha prayer had just ended. "Imam," Daniel whispered. "May I ask honestly?" "Of course, my child. If I convert to Islam, will I be betraying my past life?" The imam looked at him gently and then said, "My child, there is no betrayal in seeking the truth. Those who betray their lives are the ones who know the truth but reject it because they are afraid to change." Silence. The stillness took over again. But in Daniel's chest, something broke. Like a dam that had been held back for so long, now cracked by light. Since that night, Daniel started to join the imam in performing ablution, though he had not yet prayed. He studied the movements and their meanings. He learned to recite Al-Fatiha. The imam didn't teach him like a teacher scolding a student, but like a friend sharing. On one Friday, the sky was a little cloudy, and the wind carried the scent of wet earth. The mosque looked as clean and tidy as usual. Daniel sat outside, not entering the main prayer hall. He watched as the congregants arrived one by one, shook hands, sat, and fell silent in prayer. The imam delivered a simple sermon about sincerity and the path back to Allah. Daniel didn't understand everything, but he grasped the essence. His heart trembled. His vision blurred with tears that came from nowhere. After the Friday prayer, the Imam sat beside him. "Daniel, you look troubled." Daniel nodded. "I want to be part of all of this. I don't want to just help from the outside anymore. I want to enter." The Imam lowered his gaze. "If your heart is certain, your Shahidah won't take long." They went inside. Only a few witnesses from the congregation remained. The Imam guided him slowly. Daniel's voice trembled as he uttered the words of the Shahidah. There was no applause. No jubilant embrace. But there was a sacred silence that enveloped the room. Daniel bowed his head. He cried, not because of loss, but because of finding. The days that followed were slow. Daniel learned to pray. He learned to fast, though his body grew weak on the first day. He read more of the Qur'an, slowly, word by word. The Imam continued to accompany him, sometimes allowing him to ask, sometimes letting him remain silent. He still worked at the church for a few more weeks, thinking about his future. He bid farewell respectfully. Not everyone could accept his decision, but Daniel knew that honesty was more important than acceptance. Now, every morning, Daniel came earlier to the mosque. He swept the yard, just as he used to sweep the church. But there was a difference. This time, his hands moved with a deeper sense of gratitude. He wasn't just cleaning the floor, he was also cleaning the past full of questions with a faith that had now found its place. Several months had passed since Daniel embraced Islam. His new life flowed calmly, far from the hustle and bustle, yet it was in simplicity that he found the meaning of life he had been searching for. He never asked for a position or praise, yet the mosque management trusted him. The old Imam, whom he now called Abi, called him one day after the Far prayer. "Daniel," he said, "since you came, this mosque has become more lively. We want you to be the permanent caretaker of cleanliness. But not just to clean. We need someone who will treat this mosque like their own home." Daniel lowered his head. His heart was warm. Not because of the trust, but because of a gratitude he couldn't express in words. "I am nobody, Abi," he said softly. "But if I can take care of Allah's house, it is an honor for me." Since that day, Daniel was no longer just a sweeper. He began to check the ablution taps, inspect the prayer carpets, ensure the Quran was neatly placed, and greet the congregation with a gentle smile. He learned to greet with Assalamu alaikum, even though his accent still sounded foreign. But no one laughed. Everyone welcomed him as part of the large family. Some young people often approached him. They were amazed to see a new Muslim so diligently cleaning the mosque. "Daniel, why don't you find another job? This work is hard and unseen," one of them asked. Daniel smiled. "I used to clean the church. I thought it was part of my worship. Now I know, wherever the house of worship is, cleanliness is part of faith." The young people fell silent. They began to help sometimes, especially on Fridays or during Ramadan. Daniel never asked. But his presence quietly became an example. During his first Ramadan, Daniel cried during the Taraweeh prayers. His body was weak from fasting in the heat of the day, but his soul was strong. He felt something he had never experienced before, a submission from the heart. One night, in the last 10 days of Ramadan, he sat in the corner of the mosque, the place where he first began sweeping the floor. He prayed. "O Allah, I am nobody. I have no knowledge. But I know that in your house, I feel alive. If you allow it, let me stay here until the end of my life, cleaning the dust, and hoping that you will cleanse my sins." No one knew the contents of his prayer that night. But the next day, the congregation that usually came for Far prayer began to notice that the mosque looked much cleaner, smelled fresher, and was well maintained. They knew whose hands had worked behind it all. Imam Abi grew older. One morning, he sat next to Daniel after the Far prayer. His voice was faint. "Daniel, when I'm gone, you continue this. Don't let this house become empty. Daniel held Abi's hand. Abi, I don't know anything. That's exactly why. The one who feels like they don't know anything is the one most able to take care of the trust. A few weeks later, Abi passed away in his sleep. The mosque was packed during his funeral. Daniel stood at the back, bowing his head. His hand gripped the broom as usual, but this time it felt heavier. It was as if the broom was not just a tool, but a legacy. He never replaced the imam's position. But everyone knew that since Abi's death, Daniel had become the spirit of the mosque's quietude. He kept it clean, greeted the worshippers, and turned on the lights every evening before Maghrib. The young people now called him Ustadz Daniel. They often sat with him, learning wudu, memorizing short surahs. Daniel never taught formally. He only shared what he knew. And because of that, his words always reached their hearts. Years went by. Daniel grew older in peace. The mosque remained clean, alive, and warm. He was not known outside the mosque's community. But for those who came every day, Daniel was the small light that shone in silence. One day, in his old age, someone asked him, Ustadz Daniel, if life could be repeated, would you still choose to be a mosque caretaker? Daniel chuckled softly. If I could do it all over again, I would ask God to make me the mosque keeper from the start. So I could clean more dust before I returned to dust myself. And when the time came, Daniel passed away in the same place where he had first prostrated. In the corner of the mosque, in quietness, between the prayer rug and the Qur'an. On a small plaque near the mosque door, it was written, "Cleanliness is part of faith. And Daniel has cleaned the house of Allah, and his heart as well."